I apologized for it because we put it out. And even me just watching it after, I was like, ooh, this ain't right. I mean, we felt like our skin's beautiful. Let's paint the world our color. And then we saw it and we're like, oh no, this excuses other people to do this in a negative way.
Tyra Banks, the supermodel who built an empire on female empowerment and breaking beauty standards, is now being called out for the very thing she once claimed to fight against. Her image as the strong, supportive mentor, it's cracking fast, and this time, fans aren't letting it slide. To understand the fall, we need to revisit the rise, because Tyra didn't just walk into the spotlight, she built her own stage.
You're a very nice person.
Thank you.
Do you enjoy playing mean people, though?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tyra Banks wasn't just a model, she broke barriers. She became the first Black woman to appear solo on the cover of Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Edition and GQ. That wasn't just a career milestone, it was a cultural moment. She challenged the industry's definition of beauty and proved that a Black woman could dominate spaces long closed off. Then came the Victoria's Secret era. Tyra was a top Angel one of the brand's highest paid models and most recognizable faces. But while other models were content being part of the show, Tyra was already thinking bigger. She wanted more than fame, she wanted ownership. In 2003, she created America's Next Top Model, a reality show where she wasn't just the host, she was the boss. Tyra was executive producer, head judge, and the face of the brand. The show promised to find the next big thing in modeling, but behind the scenes, it was all Tyra's vision and no one could challenge it. She followed it up with The Tyra Show, a talk show built around real talk, vulnerability, and empowerment. Tyra tackled everything from body image to bullying to race. At the time, it felt revolutionary. She positioned herself as a champion of women, especially young girls who didn't feel seen in the mainstream media. But underneath that polished image, there was a pattern. Tyra always kept control. She shaped the narrative, picked the winners, and managed her public persona tightly. And as we'd later learn, that control came with a cost. But what happens when the dream you sold becomes a nightmare for others? For a while, America's Next Top Model seemed like a dream opportunity, but former contestants are finally speaking up, and the stories are disturbing. Behind the scenes, the show wasn't glamorous, it was intense, isolating, and for many, traumatic. Contestants say they were sleep-deprived, cut off from family, and under constant surveillance. They were young, most in their late teens or early 20s, and the pressure to perform was non-stop. Makeovers were a big part of the show, but they weren't optional. Girls cried when they lost their eyebrows, had their heads shaved, or were given dramatic changes they hated. Tyra's team dismissed their feelings, saying it was part of the job. And then came the body shaming. Contestants were called out for gaining a few pounds, even when they were still underweight by normal standards. Some said they developed eating disorders after leaving the show. Others described how the judges would mock their posture, facial expressions, even their voices. Kim Stoltz from Cycle 5 was humiliated on national TV for being openly gay. During one panel, she was criticized for not being feminine enough, and Tyra questioned whether Kim was too androgynous to be marketable. It wasn't just harsh, it was targeted. Then there's the moment that went viral. I have never in my life yelled at a girl like this. Tyra's explosive breakdown on Tiffany, a contestant who didn't cry when eliminated. At the time, it was dramatic TV, but now it feels like something else. A woman in power, losing control and using that power to publicly shame someone who didn't meet her emotional expectations. That wasn't tough love, that was humiliation. And if you thought the contestants had it bad, the judges weren't safe either. Janice Dickinson, one of the original judges, says Tyra got rid of her for being too bold and taking too much attention. Janice has never held back, and according to her, Tyra couldn't handle it. Janice claims Tyra wanted full control of the panel. If a judge became too popular or went off script, they were pushed out. Dickinson said Tyra didn't like strong personalities unless she could control them, and that behind the scenes, things were far from friendly. In one interview, Janice said, "She's not a friendly lady." At first, people thought Janice was just being dramatic. But now, with more stories coming out, her words are hitting differently. Other former judges have hinted at the same thing. Tyra ran the show with an iron grip, and anyone who didn't fall in line didn't last long. The more you hear, the clearer it becomes. America's Next Top Model wasn't just a modeling show. It was Tyra's world, and everyone else was disposable. But the most iconic clash of all? Tyra versus Naomi Campbell. And this one gets messy.
I think you let me put my head in your lap, or you put my feet on your lap.
Right.
And you're like, sweetie, are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, actually, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. And then you said, I have to ask you something.
Right.
See, I remember this because I was so new and young. You said, I have to ask you something. Do they try to make you look like me?
Right.
And I said, I don't know about so much now, but in LA, yeah, they really did with the little short black whips
that.
and
You
stuff.
told me that, yeah, I
yes.
remember.
And Naomi, you got up, pushed me away, and said, yeah, I thought so. And you turned.
I did.
You went from the sweetest woman that was giving me vitamins to someone that terrified me on that trip.
Oh my God.
And
understandable, I can understand.
I was told on that trip that I was sent home because you don't want me there anymore.
This feud wasn't just two supermodels clashing, it was turned into a full-blown narrative of villain and victim. Tyra claimed Naomi made her early modeling career hell. In interviews, she said Naomi tried to block her from major jobs, intimidated her on set, and treated her as competition instead of lifting her up as a fellow black model. Tyra framed the feud like this. Naomi was already a queen in the industry and saw Tyra as a threat. Instead of supporting her, Naomi allegedly tried to shut her out. But here's where things get complicated. If Naomi was so powerful, how did Tyra still land all those huge covers? Sports Illustrated, GQ, Victoria's Secret, those weren't small wins. If Naomi was really blackballing her, how did Tyra keep rising? That's what fans started asking. And critics didn't hold back. Some said Tyra turned the feud into a strategy. By framing herself as the nice girl being targeted by the aggressive veteran, she gained sympathy. She controlled the narrative and made sure people saw her as the underdog, even though she was doing just fine. Over time, Naomi's side of the story didn't get much airtime, and while Tyra cried in interviews and talked about how hurt she was, Naomi was painted as cold and mean. That at it worked in Tyra's favor. And then there were the silent feuds, the women Tyra never yelled at but quietly pushed away. Let's talk about Kimora Lee Simmons. In the early 2000s, Tyra and Kimora were close. Both were black women in fashion, both powerful, and both building empires. But somewhere along the way, that friendship faded, and fans noticed. There was no public fallout, no big fight, but behind the scenes, there were whispers of jealousy. Kimora had her baby fat fashion line, a business she built and expanded while Tyra focused on media. Some say Tyra didn't like sharing the spotlight with someone she couldn't control. Then there's Beverly Johnson, the first black woman to grace the cover of Vogue, a true icon. But when Tyra would talk about breaking barriers, she rarely mentioned Beverly. In interviews, Beverly's name was often left out, and when Beverly finally spoke up, she did it carefully but clearly. She hinted that Tyra liked rewriting history, that she wanted to be the first even when she wasn't. The pattern is hard to ignore. If Tyra couldn't own the narrative, it seemed like she just erased it. And in doing so, she pushed aside the very women who made it possible for her to rise. But Tyra's critics aren't just famous. They're everyday fans who grew up idolizing her and now feel betrayed.
You know, it's great because you don't have to apologize. You're just rolling through. I could say I was in character and be a monster. You know, I could say I'm method.
In recent years, old clips have resurfaced and they are different now. Fans who once thought Tyra was empowering are now calling her out for being controlling, insensitive, and even cruel. One moment shows a contestant being pressured to pose in a coffin just days after losing a loved one. Another shows Tyra telling a dark-skinned girl to embrace looking too African as if it were a flaw to fix. And that mentorship? Viewers now say it was just manipulation dressed up as guidance. Tyra often played therapist, judge, and boss all at once, making contestants feel like their careers, their futures, even their self-worth depended entirely on pleasing her. Social media is filled with clips and commentary now. People are posting compilations titled Tyra Banks being the villain all along. Comment sections are flooded with words like narcissist, fake feminist, and master manipulator. A person commented saying she didn't care about those girls, she cared about her image. Another one added, looking back, the show was just psychological warfare for TV ratings. We didn't see it then, but it's clear now. For years, Tyra's brand was built on uplifting others. But now, more and more people are realizing that the only person Tyra was really building up might have been herself.
Are you still buddies with like the 90s supermodels? I mean, I
never was.
Oh, you were never in with that?
No.
So Tyra's image as a trailblazer is under heavy review. For decades, she was seen as the first to break through doors, the first black woman on certain magazine covers, the first to create a modeling show that gave regular girls a shot, the first to make vulnerability and empowerment a brand. But now people are looking closer and they're seeing the cracks in that foundation. And critics say America's Next Top Model didn't empower, it exploited. Girls were pitted against each other, pushed into emotional breakdowns, and judged for things they couldn't control. What looked like career coaching often felt more like psychological pressure. And Tyra was at the center of it all, deciding who stayed, who cried, and who got told they weren't marketable. Some are calling it a power trip wrapped in positive messaging. Others believe she was just mimicking the same system that hurt her coming up, repeating the cycle instead of breaking it. There are still defenders though. Some argue Tyra did change the game. She gave visibility to all types of beauty. She showed that a black woman could run an empire, host her own talk show, and be taken seriously in rooms that once shut her out. But even those supporters admit it's time to hold her accountable. Because now it's not just about what she accomplished, it's about how she did it, and whether the harm caused along the way cancels out the good she intended. Her legacy is no longer just about fashion or fame, it's about responsibility. Tyra Banks once told young women to own their power, to be bold, to stand tall. But now, the spotlight is back on her, and people are asking at what cost. Were those words just branding, or did she really believe them? Because from where a lot of people are standing, the cost of Tyra's power may have been everyone else's pain. Do you think Tyra can come back from this backlash? Or has the mask finally slipped for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories that pull back the curtain on fame.